What makes you get up at 4 a.m. every day to finish editing the commentary and send it out to everybody? And I tell people I like doing it, and that's why I do it. And if I ever stop liking it, I will stop doing it. And interestingly enough,
hello and welcome to another episode of Mortgage Influencers, where we bring you professionals who share insight into the latest trends, tips, industry technology, and services to help you be a mortgage influencer in your mortgage business.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Mortgage Influencers. My name is Ginger Bell, and I have Frank Garay with us today. Carl and Scott are both traveling, but we have a special guest, and I'm excited to have him share so much knowledge that he has in the industry. And I know, Rob, you're very humble and all that you've done. But for those of you who don't know Rob Chrisman, Rob is really one of the biggest influences in our industry as far as the pulse and what's happening in the news and the day-to-day operation. And if you are not registered for his daily newsletter that goes out, you can do that, and we'll give you the information about how to do that. But let's go ahead and get started. So, Rob, thank you for joining us. I think you're joining us today from a much warmer place in Mexico, right?
I am in Mexico at the moment. Yes.
At the moment. Not under witness protection or anything like that.
Right.
No.
Just to be clear, you could leave Mexico if you wanted, right? To be clear, you could leave Mexico if you wanted to,
right? I can
right?
leave Mexico.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I can come and go. I've got a passport around here somewhere. I've got papers.
Excellent.
But sometimes, as you guys know, when you videotape something or record something, sometimes whoever you're doing it with or for, they don't play it for a week or two or three. So I'm always hesitant about saying necessarily where I am, because somebody might not be watching or listening to this for a while, at which point I'll be back in, Kansas City or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But at the moment I am in Mexico, and it is very nice here.
Very good.
Cool. Nice.
Well, one of the things that I really wanted to start out with, Rob, because I think it's a very interesting story as to how you came up with the idea, how you started with really doing a daily blog and what you're doing and sending the information out. So give us kind of the history of that.
Well, it's not as exciting or dramatic as one might think. And in fact, I went to Cal and got an MBA, and they were very big. Cal was very big into creating business plans and so forth. And I never had a business plan for this. I went into capital markets in 1985, 1986, and that's primarily my background. Although I've done other things along the way. But in the late 90s, or I should say early 2000s, I was working for a pipeline hedging company. Tuttle & Company became TRMS. TRMS became Compass Analytics, and at that point, it was with TRMS, Tuttle Risk Management System. So the thing about hedging pipelines is that we had conference calls every day with our clients. Every day at a certain time, that particular client, let's say J.I. Kislak in Florida, or Supreme Lending in Texas, management knew that they could, at that point, get together in one room and hey, we're calling Rob at 11 o'clock East Coast time every day to talk about the market, talk about their pipeline, talk about their position, talk about what's going to happen tomorrow and so on, and the strategy, map out the hedging strategy for that day, because you wanted the same strategy every day. You don't want to take chances. Anyway, you would go through that every day. And then when email came along, it became easier to send out kind of a market snapshot via email. And oftentimes, is what happens in this industry is if you like somebody and they work for, in this case, a vendor, maybe you want them on board your own company. And so I got hired away and went to work for an originator or two running capital markets. And a couple times, 2 or 3 times a week, or it got to be every day, I would send out a snippet to the loan officers or account executives, if it was a wholesale company, about what was going on in the marketplace. And inevitably, what tends to happen, as you guys know, is if John Smith goes from ABC mortgage to XYZ mortgage, I could easily get an email from John Smith the next day or the next week saying, hey, Rob, I know we don't work at the same company anymore, but I like your market snapshot. Can you add me to your distribution list? And so it was very organic. And in 2008, I kind of went along, and yeah, it was fine. It was part of my job. I enjoyed doing it. And then in 2008, my mom died. Wanted to spend more time with my family. I wanted to help my dad deal with the estate and all that kind of stuff. And the market was, the market was what the market was. And so I thought, I'm just going to quote retire, but I will step back from the day to day. At that point, I was working for a great guy, Rob Hurt, at RPM / now Lend Us. But I told Rob in April of 2008, look, I've got to deal with my family stuff here and so forth. And he was like, yeah. Finally, in October, I was able to actually quote retire, and Rob and I are still friends and so forth. But I kept sending out this commentary, which at that point was going to, I don't know, 300, 400, 500 people or something. And I continued to send it out despite retiring. And it grew just organically. And then at some point, somebody said, hey, I'm out of a job. Can you keep your ears open for some kind of job? I don't remember what it was. And so I said, sure. And so then I, introduced, I think it was a him, introduced him around, and I think he got a job. But then, so companies saw that as my distribution grew, they could put an ad in there for an underwriter or a loan officer or a head of marketing or whatever, and it would get a little bit of traction. It would get disseminated. And so I started running ads. The intent was never to make money from advertising. The intent all along has been to help people hear about jobs that are out there, or hear about products if they're not happy with their sub-servicer. And of course, no one is really happy with their sub-servicer or their LOS or whatever software they're using. So if they're looking for a new LOS or a new sub-servicer or new whatever, or a system to help loan officers be more compliant, they would see an ad in there. Or specifically, going back to jobs, if somebody was out of a job, they could, maybe they'll get a job through my commentary. And it's really neat in terms of the nice things that people say to me when I'll go speak somewhere, because I've never been an originator, and I don't know the feeling necessarily of putting a family in a home and going home that night thinking, wow, I helped the Smiths get into that house, and great school district, et cetera. But I do, when I meet people will come up to me and say, hey, I got my job 5 years ago through your commentary. I'm happy. It's been great. So people will come up to me and say some very nice things about jobs, job openings that they saw in my commentary. And I will always say, it's you, it's not me. Me posting it is, well, you helped. I wouldn't have seen it if it weren't for that. So like I say, people have some very nice things to say. And Frank, Ginger, the usual question is, why do you keep doing this? Why, what makes you get up at 4 a.m. every day to finish editing the commentary and send it out to everybody? And I tell people I like doing it, and that's why I do it. And if I ever stop liking it, I will stop doing it. And interestingly enough, a month or two ago, now this is really going to sound first world problems, but going back to pipeline hedging and Compass Analytics, the owner of Compass Analytics was a couple, mainly a guy, Rob Kessel, and Rob and Kelly bought a boat, which they're a catamaran, which they're sailing. Well, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but pretty much sailing kind of around the world. And they asked people to come join them on, for stints on their boat. So about a month ago, I found myself in Fiji with almost no internet access. And so prior to that, I had mapped out with my son, Robbie, who I understand you're going to have on the show.
Yep.
Mapped out him doing my commentary for me because the internet was non-existent in several places. So the baton was temporarily passed for 2 or 3 weeks, unbeknownst to the general readership.
Right.
And he pulled it off very, very well. In fact, right from day one, I would get compliments. Like I had a friend write to me the first day that Robbie did it, and I saw it later, and it said, "Rob, did you take a creative writing class over the summer?"
Boy, you've gotten a lot better all of a sudden.
Right, you're not, I don't see any misspellings.
Yeah.
And so Robbie done good, but it's nice to know in the back of my head that if I ever do just want to stop doing it, I can, and it'll be in good hands. But for now, I enjoy it. I enjoy, like you guys do, going around the country, meeting people, going to conferences, chatting with them, and just trying to be sometimes a little bit of a guide and try to help them, and other times just be a friend, and other times just kind of show up, which I think different groups appreciate. And it is a great industry because, as so many people on this call know, and as you guys know, the industry is filled with some really neat people, and they're generally smart and quick-witted and savvy, and a lot of small business success stories that are out there. And so it's a neat business to be in, and it's easy to get excited about it. And sure, we go through some cycles, but it's a good place to be.
Yeah,
Most definitely. I think it's neat that it's interesting that you're working with Robbie and you got to dip your toe in the water a little bit with handing the baton over, if you will. Could this work? Does this work? And it did. And knowing that option's out there for you it's interesting to me, because right now I'm doing that with my daughter and my son, building a mortgage brand with them / for them that I'm going to help them get it up and running and functional and all that stuff. And I wanted to just kind of step away from it. It's and let them run it. It's kind of like putting together a sort of a legacy that your kids can take over, and run with. And with regard to your comment about this is a neat industry, this is one of the things you can do in this industry from different aspects. Like from your standpoint, you could do it from what you're doing from an originator standpoint. You could build a business and turn that over to your family as well. You could, it's a legacy building business if you treat it that way. And I just think it's neat you're doing that. I think it's super cool. And I got a question for you. When did you make the switch? Because I remember back in the day, it was an email, like you said. It was just an email that people would get. It was literally on an email. You would put your synopsis or whatever on an email. But later, that turned into more of a blog type of a format, right? Like an online web-based sort of blog format. Is that where it is? Is that how they access your information now? Is it robchrisman.com or
well,
how does it work?
How does it work? So there's a for anybody looking to distribute something, initially the subscriptions were such that I would just literally mail out the commentary to a couple hundred people or 500 people or 1,000 people.
I remember that.
And then at some point, an attorney friend of mine said, you're starting to pick up some numbers here. It might make sense for you to use a service like Constant Contact. And it might make sense to have a little website.
Yeah.
At least get your name on there, www.robchrisman.com, and you can post your commentary there, and then you can send it out through Constant Contact, and you can keep emailing folks. And so I did that several years ago, and this is going to sound, so once again, I don't have a business plan. I'm still naive about these things. I don't know exactly how many hits my website receives a day from people reading the commentary there. I see what goes out through Constant Contact. I also know that my email is forwarded, which I don't track. And I also know how many I send it to directly. And some companies or some organizations post it on their website, which I don't kind of track, but I do kind of track, because if somebody's redistributing it, I'd like to talk to them. But it goes out to about 70,000 people a day.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'd rather be, I'm going to go out swimming here pretty soon. I'd rather be swimming in the ocean than trying to track down clicks and who's doing what with it. So people read it through a variety of sources, whatever's easiest for them. And I don't kind of say it's my way or the highway kind of thing. I try to, I've got the website, I've got Constant Contact, I've got email. They can figure it out. And then, they don't have to read it at all. Every day, 5 or 10 people unsubscribe, although usually they're changing their email. So they unsubscribe from the old email and add a new one. But generally speaking, I'm trying to get the information out there, and I'm not saying you need to read it this way. I try to make it flexible and they can
accessible.
Figure it out from there.
Yeah, good, Nick.
I think you're syndicated too, though. Isn't one of the news?
Yeah, I see you in other places. Yeah.
You used to be syndicated.
No, I think you are. You just don't know it.
I'd like to see.
Yeah, I think you are. You just don't know it. Yeah.
I think the Mortgage News Daily. I think.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah. I mean, that's another one. Mortgage News Daily sends it out to Brassa, which is Mortgage Success Stores, sends it out.
Yeah.
And they each pay me, $100 a month to send it out.
Yeah. So I want to talk about
maybe a little more,
because you started this.
We figured that
you started sharing information, right? And so I know you get asked to speak at a lot of conferences. And so was that something that you were doing a lot before? Was that something that you think was a result of all of this? What do you think?
I think that I never set out to speak per se. There are always calls for speakers, like the MBA will send out a call for the national secondary or the national conference. I've never applied to speak at a conference. Usually what happens is somebody reads my commentary and they realize that I really don't have an axe to grind. I'm not out there trying to market the commentary. This is going to sound maybe too blunt than it is, but I don't really care if you read it or not. I mean, hope you do, but if you don't, that's fine. If you read it, a lot of people will come up to me and say, hey, I read your opening paragraph, and then I read the joke, and then I delete. And I'd say, cool,
whatever.
Whatever. If that's what you want to do, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're ever out of a job, I guarantee you'll be looking in that next section.
Look a little deeper.
And good. Redistribute the joke. That's fine. I mean, I used to have a sense of humor, not anymore. But
not true.
read the joke. And so people will see that, and then they'll say, "Oh, Rob might have an ounce of information in him. How much does it? Let's have him down to speak." Or over to speak or up to speak or whatever. And so they'll write to me and they'll say, hey, we've got a company sales meeting coming up in, April in, Tallahassee, Florida. What do you charge? And I'm very, very reasonable. I'm not sitting here pounding the Rob Chrisman speaking drum, but very reasonable. And, coach travel and all that kind of stuff. And I like it because I can talk to people. I can meet people, and like I say, sometimes people say some very nice things, and so it's a good opportunity to just show up. It's not like I've got an addiction to Embassy Suites or the chocolate chip cookies at the DoubleTree or something. But and I'll tell you, travel unfortunately has gotten to be a real bear, at least this year, in terms of delays and cancellations.
I don't like it. I hate it.
Yeah, it's not. I like being at the event. I don't like getting there or leaving, because it can be especially the air travel.
It's brutal. Yeah, it's
It's
brutal.
gotten bad.
Yeah.
So I like speaking. I like answering questions, and I think I do a decent job of explaining to people. I know, Frank, you do a very good job as well, explaining to people what's going on in layman's terms to be able, so they can take that information back to their clients or their coworkers and say, oh yeah, here's why interest rates are going up, or here's what's going on with this, that, and the other thing. So
yeah,
but yeah, I enjoy it.
I would like to. It's interesting because Ginger brought this up. Like, man, there's a lot of how do I say this? There's those of us that have been in the industry for a while, right? For the 30 plus years or whatever. And there's those of us who have been kind of influencers in the industry. You, Rob, us, Barry, and everybody. There's this pack of influencers out there that Ginger's kind of saying, but boy, everybody's kind of aging out of this thing, and so where's the new kids, where's the new guys, and I know they're on their way, and there's probably some I don't even know about right now that are just destroying it, right? They're doing great. But with that in mind, what I was going to ask you, Rob, is if you could just lay out, because if you just lay out for us, like, what is it that you write about, and does it really? Because I remember when you were first coming out, man, our CEO and our ops guys, they were riveted to they were just like, what's he saying? What's he saying? What's he saying? It was a high level, sort of commentary that you were delivering that I think that was more digestible by, the CEOs and the upper management, than it was necessarily for the street level originator, right? For the street level guy. So would you say that that's still kind of the case? Or I guess what I'm asking is if you could let someone who's watching this or hearing this on the future podcast, wherever this is heard, who might not be familiar with you, right? Might be of the younger, a newer originator, been in the business 2 or 3 years, isn't even 30 years old yet, might not know about you, doesn't know about me, I'm sure, you know what I mean? And what's the kind of commentary can they expect, and is it usable, from a street level originator standpoint?
That's a very good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question.
Huh.
So the commentary initially was for loan officers. I would put out investor updates. Hey, Countrywide is doing this, Washington Mutual is doing that, Long Beach is doing this, Lehman Brothers doing that kind of thing. And then I would put in about why interest rates were doing what they were doing. And then as the subscription, as the numbers grew, I found myself being asked to explain, what is a basis point, or why are rates going up, or more, how does an adjustable rate mortgage adjust, or more not philosophical, but more kind of
educational,
basic, educational things. And I like writing about that because the industry needs education. And then it's fluctuated because sometimes when there's so much news coming out, it's like I just put the news out there. When things are slow, that gives me a chance to explain, hey, here's what a secondary marketing person does every day. Hey, here is what is talked about in Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's charter. Here is why they're doing what they're doing. And so it kind of ebbs and flows in terms of what I'm writing about. And I think one of the things that I pride myself on, and probably sometimes I miss the ball, but is to kind of know, given the email questions that I'm getting on a daily basis that I'm receiving, I kind of get a sense of what is on the minds of originators and CEOs and so forth. In terms of CEOs and managers, I mean, I've run companies before, and the people that I tend to, this is going to sound more stuck up than I mean it, but when I go to a conference, it's typically the CEOs and the owners that I'm hanging out with at the cocktail parties. But when I go to a company event, oftentimes I'm just shooting the breeze with the originators or the processors or the underwriters and so forth. So it kind of depends on the event where I am in terms of who I'm socializing with and who I'm hearing information from. But in terms of the information that I put out, it's based on what I'm hearing from the field and what the concerns are. And I think there are a lot of concerns now, especially given the business cycle and given where we are with the market. And that's on everybody's mind. So I try to make people feel okay with what's going on and remind them that we're in a cyclical business, whether you're a CEO or an owner or some new loan officer assistant that got hired, a year ago, and this is your first job out of college, and holy smoke, what is going on with this business? Because it is cyclical. But I try to just try to get the information out there. In terms of the capital markets section, which we put out every day, that is really, there's a lot of trader talk that's out there, gobbledygook that I can't understand, or it takes me too long to understand. And if you're an average loan officer or even a CEO, you don't really care about some of the things that the traders are seeing. You care about what impacts your rate sheet, or they want that information distilled into something that they can read and say, oh, that's why there are no prices above par on a rate sheet. Rob explained it. So that the secondary marketing and capital markets section, I do try to translate some of that information into easily digestible bits. Sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge, but I'm doing okay with it.
Well, and I think in relation to that, because you do the explanation and the education, I think it's an opportunity for loan originators to take that information and to share that information with their real estate partners, with their clients. And I don't know how many originators are seeing that as an opportunity. I know we see a lot of videos, talking about what's happening on the market. They're, doing screenshots of MBS Highway and Mortgage Coach. And I see your information as one of the few in the industry that does provide that education on the whole, as well as the underneath. And so I think as an originator, it's an opportunity, honestly, Rob, to take what you're doing every day and to take little snippets of that and share that information. Because, you think about new originators that are coming into the industry, and even some who have been in for a while are learning from that. And then you look at the realtors and they really don't know. And all they have is what they're hearing in the news, right? So that's an opportunity.
I had several years ago created a website called knowledgeforrealestateagents.com. And I thought I can duplicate what I'm doing with mortgage banking for real estate agents. And I had kind of embarked down this path, and I realized that now nothing against real estate agents. All right. They're, God bless real estate agents. God loves a terrier. Anyway, but I found out that for many real estate agents, they didn't care what was going on outside of, let's say, 5 square miles of where their office is. They just didn't care what was going on with economic trends in the West or the East, or they didn't care about this, that, and the other thing. They wanted to know that a new signal was going in on the corner and that the school district was repainting their lines so the road was going to be closed, and what a white picket fence, cost to paint or whatever. It was very specific realtor knowledge. And I know Inman does a very good job in terms of dealing with real estate agents, but I have my hands full dealing with mortgage bankers and banks and credit unions and brokers and so forth. So I focused on that, and I didn't go with the real estate agent side of things. But yeah, I found over the last several years, that real estate agents, they don't care so much about getting a postcard with the latest pumpkin pie recipe from their loan officer. Yeah. They want a subject matter expert. I know that term is overused, but they've usually got one lender who's got the best price, and they've got one lender who is great customer service, and they've got a third lender who might be able to put together hairy deals, non-QM or whatever, and make those work. And they've got this kind of this group, and for them to call up any originator, talk to any lender, they want information. They don't want to know, hey, don't forget to change your clocks this weekend. They want to know, hey, this borrower, he declared bankruptcy, 3 years ago. What can we do for this borrower? That's where their heads are. And so, yeah, for my commentary to go out, and even if it just helps one loan officer a day, talk to one realtor and give that realtor the answer that they're looking for, that's job well done.
Yeah. It could certainly be used for that. That's for sure.
The other thing I'm going to do. So first of all, just to kind of recap, Rob started this really just as an answer to providing information. And so, think about that, just providing that information. And then it grew to where you probably have one of the largest really lists as far as emails in the industry. That truly is a true list, because I know when people do change companies, they do resubscribe to you. So if you're getting those people saying, oh, hey, by the way, I've moved, can I, resubscribe? That's a good sign. The other thing that you do in what you send out every single day is at the very bottom is always a joke. And so the fact that you combine that information with also your personality, of having that joke in there, I think that's important. And so, when you're thinking about putting something together, be open to that too, if not just having the information, but bringing your personality in as well. And I always look forward to the jokes.
Yeah, because sometimes they're actually pretty good.
The joke, I don't know if we're running out of time or not, but the joke is a whole different is a whole breakout session about the
I
joke.
bet. Yeah.
If they're too racy, and I tend towards racy humor, I will hear about it.
Yeah.
On the other
Got to be
hand,
careful.
If they're too dumb, I hear about that too. I'll get emails like, Rob, you've lost your edge.
Come on, man.
But it used to be on the trading desk. There would inevitably be, like John Denver would crash into Monterey Bay, and suddenly there'd be a bunch of John Denver jokes, or
Right.
Michael Jackson would die, and suddenly there'd be a bunch of Michael Jackson jokes. So the Wall Street, the trading desk humor, and they spread like wildfire. And I always found that, you get to know the clients and what kind of jokes they like. And so when you're talking to them about mundane, well, here's your position, you took in $5 million worth of locks yesterday, and here's what I think, blah, blah, blah. To be able to spice that up a little bit, a little bit of sugar helps the medicine go down.
Sure.
Was very valuable to people. And so, yeah. And every, I have the same Cinco de Mayo joke every May 5th. I've got, Thanksgiving jokes. I've got Christmas jokes that I tend to repeat. But there's some, people still have a sense of humor. And I think it's important to maintain a sense of humor through, what we're going through now, for example.
Exactly.
Humor's always been king. Yeah.
So we'll have to have you back on, because I think, talking about what's going on right now, especially coming into the new year, I'd love to have you talk about that, which we didn't really get into a lot of that. So, thank you so much for hopping on. I know that you have a lot of great information to share. For those of you who are not on Rob's list, you can find information at robchrisman.com, right? And we are going to have Robbie Chrisman on in a couple weeks. And so we'll get to see the other side of the story as far as what he's doing.
He has hair. And he
not for long.
Well, he's got quite the hair. It'll be interesting. He shaves about once a quarter now, and so sometimes he looks a little rough around the edges. But
we're coming off a no shave November, so we'll see what he looks like in a couple weeks.
There you go.
Awesome stuff,
great.
Rob. Thanks so much.
All right.
Yeah, thanks so
I'll
much.
Always good.
Later.
Always great to see you.
Okay, and thanks, guys, and we will see you all next week. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Frank.
Very
See you
well.
guys.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.